A lot of the stuff that was going on with strikes was centered around AI and what AI is going to do to the business. Like, where do you feel is going to be like the biggest problem with AI? Is it going to be with people's likenesses? Because there's a lot of that where they want to use extras and own their digital rights forever, essentially be able to recreate them in any kind of film. But then there's also you're going to have films that are written by artificial intelligence. You're going to have scenes that don't involve people, and it gets weird, right?
It gets really weird, but it's actually an
It's
area of
tricky. Like,
expertise for him.
yeah, we've been spending time looking at this. Like, my belief is it's sort of like what's going to happen with electricity. Well, a lot of shit's going to happen with electricity. Some of it's going to be good. Some of it's going to change stuff. Some of it's going to be like, this is going to be, shit that kills a bunch of people. Like, it's opening a door that you can't, say, well, talk about it in a kind of a blanket way.
Cutting through the dystopian hype, the conversation shifts to the practical reality. Current AI models struggle to produce anything beyond the average.
But I think with what I see is that, for example, if you try to get ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini to write you something, it's really shitty. And it's shitty because by its nature, it goes to the mean, to the average. And it's not reliable. And I just can't even stand to see what it writes. Now, it's a useful tool if you're a writer and you're going, what's the thing? I'm trying to set something up, or somebody sends someone a letter, but it's delayed 2 days and it can give you some examples of that. I actually don't think it's very likely that it's going to be able to write anything meaningful, and in particular, that it's going to be making movies like from whole cloth, like Tilly Norwood. Like, that's bullshit. I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's not. I think it turns out the technology is not progressing in exactly the same way they sort of presented it. And really, what it is going to be a tool. Just like sort of visual effects, and yeah, it needs to have language around it. You need to protect your name and likeness. You can do that. You can watermark it. Those laws already exist. I can't sell your fucking picture for money. I can't. You can sue me, period. I might have the ability to draw you, to make you in a very realistic way, but that's already against the law.
Moving away from legal fears, the focus turns to how AI will likely function on set. Not as a replacement for talent, but as a powerful efficiency tool for visual effects.
And the unions the guilds are going to manage this where it's like, okay, look, if this is a tool that actually helps us, for example, we don't have to go to the North Pole, right? We can shoot the scene here in our parkas and, whatever it is, but then make it appear very realistically as if we're in the North Pole. It's going to save us a lot of money, a lot of time. We're going to focus on the performances and not be freezing our ass off out there and running back inside. That's useful. Just like Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn used to be like driving their car and there's a wind blowing a painting behind them and it looked goofy. And now in people use a lot of computer generated stuff, and some of it is going to replace just that. Like instead of 500 guys in Singapore, making $2 an hour to render all the graphics for a superhero movie, there's going to be able to do that a lot easier. There's already laws around and guild guidelines around like how many union extras you have to use. But also we've been tiling extras. Like there weren't a million orcs in Middle Earth, you know what I mean? Right. There aren't in Invictus, there weren't all those people in the stadium. Like that's something we've been doing. It kind of feels to me like the thing we were talking about earlier, where there's a lot more fear because we have the sense this existential dread. It's going to wipe everything out.
Right.
But that actually runs counter, in my view, to what history seems to show, which is adoption is slow, it's incremental. I think a lot of that rhetoric comes from people who are trying to justify valuations around companies where they go, we're going to change everything. In 2 years, there's going to be no more work. Right. Well, the reason they're saying that is because they need to ascribe a valuation for investment that can warrant the capex spend they're going to make on these data centers with the argument that like, as soon as we do the next model, it's going to scale up, it's going to be 3 times as good. Except that actually ChatGPT 5 about 25% better than ChatGPT 4 and costs about 4 times as much in the way of electricity and data. So those, when they say that's like plateauing, the early AI, the line went up very steeply, and it's now sort of leveling off. I think it's because, and yes, it'll get better, but it's going to be really expensive to get better. And a lot of people were like, fuck this, we want ChatGPT 4, because it turned out like the vast majority of people who use AI are using it to as companion bots to chat with at night. And so there's no work, there's no productivity, there's no value to it. I would argue there's also not a lot of social value to getting people to focus on an AI friend who's, telling you that you're great and listening to everything you say and being sycophantic. But that's sort of a side issue. I think for this particular purpose, the way I see the technology and what it's good at and what it's not, it's going to be good at filling in all the places that are expensive and burdensome and then make it harder to do it. And it's always going to rely fundamentally on the human artistic aspects of it.
Well, I think the more it becomes ubiquitous, the more people are going to appreciate real things that are made by real people. You know, like you still appreciate a handmade table. You know, you're gonna appreciate like. Did you see The Beast in Me, Claire Danes?
Yeah.
No, I didn't.
Fucking great.
Yeah, I heard it was great.
That lady, whoo,
It's terrific.
whoo. When she's in a scene, you're just like, Jesus Christ,
Great
like you,
actress.
like her fucking lips are quivering, like you believe everything that she's saying.
Ultimately, the argument culminates here. Technology can mimic a face, but it cannot replicate the lived human trauma that fuels a truly great performance.
Right. People want that.
You
My
can't-
kids want
you
getting
can't
fucking
fake
cassette
that. You
tapes.
can't-
and
right.
I'll say,
records.
like, I did this interview with Dwayne Johnson because they when people are in these awards things, they sometimes have other actors interview them, you know. And I did this interview with Dwayne, and I asked him. There's this scene in The Smashing Machine where he's overdosed on drugs and his buddy comes to see him in the hospital.
Yeah.
And it really walloped me, this scene. I thought it was so great. And I asked him, and I was just like, can you just tell me about this scene? Like, did Benny Safdie directed it? Did Benny write that? Did you work on that scene with them? Did you? He goes, no, we actually worked on it together. And I go, well, but how did that scene come to be? And Dwayne goes, well, my father was an alcoholic, and I don't remember if he said substance abuser or alcoholic, but I didn't know the man. I don't want to impugn him, but he had a substance issue, whatever it was. He goes, and when he would talk to me, that's how he would defend himself. It was almost a bargaining thing, because there's this thing when this guy comes to him, he's overdosed, and Dwayne's amazing in this scene. He's going like, yeah, isn't it crazy? And then I woke up and I could hear him, but I couldn't really hear him. And you see him, and he's kind of tap dancing, and his friend finally kind of holds his feet to the fire. And at that moment, Dwayne literally starts to burst into tears and just pulls the hospital sheet up over his head. And it's like, I'm not doing it justice if you haven't. I mean, I know
I've seen it.
I know
It's
you've seen it,
amazing
yeah.
scene.
But he said, yeah. So he explains that about his father, and then he goes, and when my mom was diagnosed with stage 3 lung cancer, I was with her when the oncologist came in, and she was lying in the hospital bed. And when he gave her the news, she pulled the sheet up over her head, and I looked at her, and she just looked like a little kid, you know. And I was like, all right, like, so that, right, is 2 traumatic events from this guy's life, right, from his life experience. And the actor in him, right, sees this scene, goes into his memory, pulls these 2 things out, understands that they're appropriate for this scene, and he can marry them together in the scene. And then he goes and performs it that way. And a dude walking in off the road goes to the movies, sees this, understands somehow that it's fucking real. I didn't know why. That's why I wanted to ask him, how did that scene come to be? I genuinely didn't know. And made me tear up, and, you know, that is...
And
there's no fucking
technology
AI
is
that can
gonna
do that.
No.
It's a whole lot more than photorealistic images.
Yeah.
of
Yeah,
Dwayne
that
Johnson.
you could have an AI understand Dwayne's face and move his face into different. No fucking
never
thing
do
could
that.
ever do
The
that.
complications of real life experiences
Yeah.
relayed.
That is a completely human. That is
Yeah.
that is an artist. That's a piece of art,
Yes.
right? That comes out of a lived human